Now, there are a lot of people who talk about Israel controlling everything, Zionist puppet masters, that sort of rhetoric, which I think is incredibly sus, to put it lightly. And I do think when people say stuff like that on virtually everything, even when the subject matter is completely unrelated to Israel, then to me they do absolutely sound like tropes. However, that doesn't mean that Israel doesn't have influence on our politics. It doesn't mean it's not a problem. And pointing that out is not anti-Semitic. Now, Declassified have done some incredible work. Please check them out. This article by Matt Kennard is really good in relation to Starmer's shadow cabinet. 2/5 of Keir Starmer's cabinet have been funded by pro-Israel lobbyists. Some 13 of the 31 members of Labour's shadow cabinet have received donations from a prominent pro-Israel lobby group or individual funder, it can be revealed. These donations were provided by Labour Friends of Israel, a pro-Israel lobby group which takes MPs on fact-finding missions to the region, and Sir Trevor Chin, a multi-millionaire business tycoon and long-time pro-Israel lobbyist. More than half of Starmer's shadow cabinet are listed as parliamentary supporters or officers of LFI. These people are going to be in government. Their policies, of course, will be influenced by this. Now, more examples, if you remember. This video is from a few years ago. This is Joan Ryan secretly being filmed where she was offered £1 million from the State of Israel.
He's trying to arrange another delegation, maybe, that's a young activist of LFI.
What happened with the names that we put into the embassy, Charlie?
And just now got the money. It's more than £1 million. It's a lot of money. And then, and now I got the money. So from Israel. So it's not physical. Yeah, it's improvement. And then,
I didn't think you had it in your bag.
Now, conveniently, she consistently undermines Jeremy Corbyn. Now, another scandal was actually from the same video. This is from Al Jazeera. They did an investigation called Lobby, which exposed Shai Massot, who was a senior political officer at the London Israeli embassy, where they plotted to take down Foreign Office Minister Alan Duncan. Now, Israel doesn't like Duncan for his pro-Palestinian views, and he has been quite outspoken on the influence of the Israeli lobby. In a new book, Britain's former Deputy Foreign Minister Alan Duncan accuses the Israel lobby of disgusting interference in our public life. Duncan writes that Conservative Friends of Israel successfully vetoed his appointment as Middle East Minister in 2016. Then Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson told him that Conservative Friends of Israel were going ballistic at the prospect, Duncan writes. It is for no other reason than that I believe in the rights of Palestinians, and it's quite clear that they don't, he adds. They just want to belittle and subjugate the Palestinians. In his interview with Michael Crick, Duncan said Conservative Friends of Israel push a sort of Netanyahu-type view of Israeli politics into our foreign policy. A lot of things do not happen in foreign policy or a government for fear of offending this lobby, he added. Now, more recently, we had Lindsay Hoyle literally visiting Israel while they are committing a genocide, which is outrageous. His dad was also the founder of Labour Friends of Israel. You can also chalk up Israel being the reason for the utter chaos in Parliament the other day, as Keir Starmer admitted that he met with Israel PM Isaac Herzog just before he went to Hoyle, urging him to table their amendment, which, of course, caused the chaos in the first place. Now, I guess Starmer wanting to exclude collective punishment from any motion has nothing to do with the close relationship with the UK and Israel. It's clear that anti-Israel sentiment is not allowed in British politics. Now, I argue, actually, the biggest opposition to Corbyn in and outside the Labour Party wasn't his domestic policy. Now, the British establishment don't endorse his domestic policy, but I feel like they would have tolerated it. But it's his foreign policy views, which is why they wanted to get rid of him. Now, I don't agree with everything he says on foreign policy, but of course I agree, and he's categorically right on his stance on Palestine, and of course, him being incredibly pro-Palestinian, again, there's a reason why he had to go. Now, another example is Luke Akehurst, or Luke Nukem as I like to call him, darling of the Labour right, very much part of the Labour bureaucracy. He currently sits on the NEC and is literally a paid lobbyist from Israel. He's the director of We Believe in Israel, yet no one seems to care. No one seems to think that's a problem. I mean, look, it is not democratic for another state to have influence on our politics. It was outrageous when the Tories were taking hundreds of thousands of pounds from Russian oligarchs. And it's just as bad now, but of course the media and the British establishment are completely fine with it because it's Israel. Now, it's important to know the exact reasons as to why we allow Israel to influence us, because if you don't understand, then, to be honest, a lot of people turn to conspiracy theories and anti-Semitism. thinking it's just about the Jews. Now, if you think that, stop that, it's racist and it's not true. Now, the first reason is simply because UK foreign policy will never differ from the US. Whitehall wants to show they are a really good ally to Washington, so there's no possibility of any delineation there. The UK and US are so intertwined with, with their lapdog, with their little bitch. Now, this paragraph from Mark Curtis's article in, again, Declassified, sums it all up perfectly well. Former Defense Secretary Michael Portillo has said Labour leader Keir Starmer has done exactly the right thing to oppose a Gaza ceasefire because the United States would want to know whether a Labour government was going to deviate from the alliance with the United States. Now, obviously, that was from a few months ago. I believe it was in November, before Starmer could bring himself to utter the word ceasefire. But you can see where the influence is. You can be a former Tory MP and be in agreement with the current leader of the opposition because they're both aligned in keeping Washington happy. Now, Aaron Bastani a few months ago pointed out on GB News, which of course has a right-wing audience, and probably a lot of people who watch GB News voted for Brexit, made a really good point. He said, look, we wanted independence and our sovereignty back by voting to leave the EU, but where's our sovereignty on foreign policy? We do what the US tells us. I think that's a really good point he made. The second reason as to why we unequivocally back Israel is imperialism. Now, in 1917, many of you know, Arthur Balfour created the Balfour Declaration, which declared a new state will be made, that was Israel, and it will be made in the Palestinian area. Now, why do we do this? Well, it had nothing to do with protecting Jews. In fact, Zionism as a movement wasn't popular among Jews. Most of them opposed it, but we needed to control trade routes going through the Mediterranean Sea, and it just so happens that Palestine is on the coast where traders often pass through. So we cynically used Jews to create a state in order to essentially have a permanent operation in the area. A settler colony is almost a perfect way to do this. Now, of course, Britain doesn't have anywhere near the same level of influence on the world, but we behave in a manner that of which came before, essentially a hangover of imperialist Britain, if you will. Now, the general public's view has radically changed over the years, but the closer you get to power is the closer you get to those institutions that created the empire, that created a settler colonial states, then really the more conservative you become, which is why those in parliament pursue policies that conserve our institutions, whether we like it or not. Now, you would not hear this type of stuff in the mainstream media. You'll hear about wokeness, about trans people. Of course, you'll hear about anti-Semitism, even when it's legitimate criticisms of Israel, but you won't hear about the Israeli lobby and how this is terrible for democracy because it asks the right questions. It gets us to the heart of British politics, and that is supporting the US no matter what and desperately trying to uphold imperialism from an ever-weakening Britain. If you enjoyed this video, make sure you like and drop a comment. It's good for the algorithm, and I'm interested in what you have to say. If you're not already subscribed, please do, and hit the notification bell. You can also support this channel by becoming a member for 99p per month, and if you're feeling a little more generous, then you can support us on Patreon for £3 or £5 per month. This channel for a while has been uploading every single day, and it's quite a lot of work that is still voluntary and scheduled around my paid work. But I have so much ambition, expect in the future to see more variety in content, such as interviews and Vox Pops. But I want this to be a fully fledged media organisation where not only is this my full-time job, but to have multiple people working for Turn Left. I like to see a live show in the future, more content that delves into culture, history, and much more. But that can only be done if there's money. So please, if you can, support us in any way that's in your capacity. And thank you to existing members, subscribers, and patrons. See you next time.